Adapted from archaic translation by Whd. Rhys. Jataka number 164. Gijjha-Jātaka. A vulture sees a corpse, etc. This story the master told about a brother who had his mother to support. The circumstances will be told under the Sama birth. The master asked him whether he, a brother, was really supporting persons who were still living in the world. This the brother admitted. How are they related to you? The master went on. They are my parents, sir. Excellent, excellent, the master said. And asked the brethren not to be angry with this brother. Wise men of old, said he, have done service even to those who were not a family to them. But this man's task has been to support his own parents. So saying, he told them this story of past days. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king of Benares, the Bodhisattva came to life as a young vulture on the vulture hill, and had his mother and father to nourish. Once there came a great wind and rain. The vultures could not hold their own against it. Half frozen, they flew to Benares, and there near the wall and near the ditch they sat, shivering with the cold. A merchant of Benares was issuing from the city on his way to bathe, when he saw these miserable vultures. He got them together in a dry place, made a fire, sent and brought them some cow flesh from the cattle's burning place, and put someone to look after them. When the storm fell, our vultures were all right and flew off at once among the mountains. Without delay they met, and thus took advice together. A Benares merchant has done us a good turn. And one good turn deserves another, as the saying is. So after this, when any of us finds a garment or an ornament, it must be dropped in that merchant's courtyard. So from then, if they ever noticed people drying their clothes or finery in the sun, watching for an unwary moment, they snatched them quickly, as hawks swoop on a bit of meat, and dropped them in the merchant's yard. But he, whenever he observed that they were bringing him anything, used to cause it to be laid aside. They told the king how vultures were plundering the city. Just catch me one vulture, says the king, and I will make them bring it all back. So snares and gins were set everywhere. Our dutiful vulture was caught. They seized him with intent to bring him to the king. The merchant aforesaid, on the way to wait upon his majesty, saw these people walking along with the vulture. He went in their company, for fear they might hurt the vulture. They gave the vulture to the king, who examined him. You rob our city, and carry off clothes and all sorts of things, he began. Yes, sire. Whom have they been given to? A merchant of Benares. Why? Because he saved our lives, and they say one good turn deserves another. That is why we gave them to him. Vultures, they say, said the king, can spy a corpse 100 leagues away. And can't you see a trap set ready for you? And with these words he repeated the first stanza. A vulture sees a corpse that lies 100 leagues away. When you descend upon a trap, do you not see it, I ask? The vulture listened, then replied by repeating the second stanza. When life is coming to an end, and death's hour draws near, though you may come close up to it, nor trap nor snare you spy. After this response of the vulture, the king turned to our merchant. Have all these things really been brought to you, then, by the vultures? Yes, my lord. Where are they? My lord, they are all put away. Each shall receive his own again. Only let this vulture go. He had his way. The vulture was set at liberty, and the merchant returned all the property to its owners. This lesson ended, the master explained the truths, and identified the birth. At the conclusion of the truths, the dutiful brother was established in the fruition of the first path. Ananda was the king of those days. Sariputra was the merchant. And I myself was the vulture that supported his parents. Source. Adapted from archaic translation by Whd. Rhys. Jataka number 165. Nakula-Jātaka. Creature, your egg-born enemy, etc. This story the master told during a stay at Jataka monastery, about two officers who had a quarrel. The circumstances have been given above in the Uraga birth. Here, as before, the master said, "This is not the first time, brethren, these two nobles have been reconciled by me. In former times I reconciled them too." Then he told an old story. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king of Benares, the Bodhisattva was born in a certain village as one of a Brahmin family. When he came of age, he was educated at Taxila. Then, renouncing the world, he became a hermit, cultivated the faculties and the attainments, and lived in the region of Himalaya, living upon wild roots and fruits which he picked up in his goings to and fro. At the end of his enclosured walk lived a mongoose in an ant heap. And not far off, a snake lived in a hollow tree. These two, snake and mongoose, were perpetually quarreling. The Bodhisattva preached to them the misery of quarrels and the blessing of peace, and reconciled the two together, saying, "You should cease your quarreling and live together as one." When the serpent was away, the mongoose at the end of the walk lay with his head out of the hole in his ant hill, and his mouth open, and thus fell asleep, heavily panting his breath in and out. The Bodhisattva saw him sleeping there, and asking him, "Why, what are you afraid of?" repeated the first stanza. "Creature, your egg-born enemy a faithful friend is made. Why sleep you there with teeth all bare? Of what are you afraid?" "Father," said the mongoose, "never despise a former enemy, but always suspect him." And he repeated the second stanza. "Never despise an enemy nor ever trust a friend. A fear that springs from unfeared things uproots and makes an end." "Fear not," replied the Bodhisattva. "I have persuaded the snake to do you no harm. Distrust him no more." With this advice, he proceeded to cultivate the four excellences, and set his face toward Brahma's upper heaven. And the others too passed away to fare hereafter according to their deeds. Then this lesson ended, the master identified the birth. The two noblemen were at that time snake and mongoose, and I was myself the ascetic. Source: adapted from archaic translation by Whd. Rhys. Jataka number 166. Upasāḻha-Jātaka. 14,000 Upasāḻhas, etc. This story the master told while at Gijjha-Jātaka monastery, about a Brahmin named Upasāḻha, who was fastidious in the matter of cemeteries. This man, we learn, was rich and wealthy. But, though he lived over against the monastery, he showed no kindness to the Buddhas, being given to wrong belief. But he had a son, wise and intelligent. When he was growing old, the man said to his son, "Don't let my body be burnt in a cemetery where any outcast can be burnt, but find some uncontaminated place to burn me in." "Father," said the young fellow, "I know no cemetery fit to burn your body in." "Good my father, take the lead and yourself point out the place where I shall have you burnt." So the Brahmin consenting led his son out of the city to the top of Vulture Peak, and then said he, "Here, my son, no outcast is ever burnt. Here I would have you burn me." Then he began to descend the hill in his son's company. On that day, in the evening, the master was looking around to see which of his friends was ripe for release, and perceived that this father and son were ready to enter upon the first path. So he took their road, and came to the hill foot, like a hunter waiting for his quarry. There he sat till they should come down from the top. Down they came, and noticed the master. He gave them greeting, and asked, "Where are you bound, Brahmins?" The young man told him their work. "Come along, then," said the master, "show me the place your father pointed out." So he and they two together climbed up the mountain. "Which place?" he asked. "Sir," said the boy, "the space between these three hills is the one he showed me." The master said, "This is not the first time, my boy, that your father has been nice in the matter of cemeteries. He was the same before. Nor is it now only that he has pointed you out this place for his burning. Long ago he pointed out the very same place." And at his request the master told them a tale of long ago. Once upon a time, in this very city of Rajraha city, lived this same Brahmin Upasāḻha, and he had the very same son. At that period the Bodhisattva had been born in a Brahmin family of Magadha land. And when his education was finished, he embraced a religious life, cultivated the faculties and the attainments, and lived a long time in the region of Himalaya, plunged in mystic exaltation. Once he left his hermitage on Vulture Peak to go buy salt and spices. While he was away, this Brahmin spoke in just the same way to his son, as now. The boy begged him to point out a proper place, and he came and pointed out this very place. As he was descending, with his son, he observed the Bodhisattva, and approached him, and the Bodhisattva put the same question as I did just now, and received the son's answer. "Ah," said he, "we'll see whether this place which your father has shown you is contaminated or not," and made them go with him up the hill again. "The space between these 3 hills," said the boy, "is pure." "My boy," the Bodhisattva replied, "there is no end to the people who have been burned in this very spot. Your own father, born a Brahmin, as now, in Rajraha city, and having the very same name of, has been burnt on this hill in 14,000 births. On the whole earth there's not a spot to be found where a corpse has not been burnt, which has not been a cemetery, which has not been covered with skulls." This he discerned by the faculty of knowing all previous lives. And then he repeated these 2 stanzas. 14,000 Upasāḻhas have been burnt upon this spot. Nor is there the wide world over any place where death is not. Where is kindness, truth and justice, temperance and self-control? There no death can find an entrance. There travels each saintly soul. When the Bodhisattva had thus given discourse to father and son, he cultivated the 4 excellences and went his way to Brahma's upper heaven. When this discourse was ended, the master explained the truths and identified and the birth. At the conclusion of the truths, father and son were established in the fruit of the first path. The father and son were the same then as they are now, and the ascetic was I myself. Source: adapted from archaic translation by Whd. Rhys. Jataka number 167. Samiddhi-Jātaka. Begging brother, do you know, etc. This story was told by the master while he was staying in Tapoda Park near Rajraha city, about elder monk Samiddhi, or Good Luck. Once elder monk Good Luck had been wrestling in the spirit all night long. At sunrise he bathed. Then he stood with his undergarment on, holding the other in his hand, as he dried his body, all yellow as gold. Like a golden statue of exquisite workmanship he was, the perfection of beauty. And that is why he was called Good Luck. A daughter of the gods, seeing the elder monk's surpassing beauty, fell in love with him, and addressed him thus. "You are young, monk, and fresh, youthful, with black hair, bless you. You have youth, you are lovely and pleasant to the eyes. Why should a man like you turn religious without a little enjoyment? Follow your desires first, and then you shall become religious and do what the hermits do." He replied, "Nymph, at some time or other I must die, and the time of my death I know not. That time is hid from me. Therefore in the freshness of my youth I will follow the solitary life, and make an end of pain." Finding she received no encouragement, the goddess at once vanished. The elder monk went and told his master about it. Then the master said, "Not now alone, Good Luck, are you tempted by a nymph. In olden days, as now, nymphs tempted ascetics." And then at his request the master told an old world tale. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king in Benares, the Bodhisattva became a Brahmin's son in a village of Kasi. Coming of years, he attained perfection in all his studies, and embraced the religious life. And he lived in Himalaya, hard by a natural lake, cultivating the faculties and the attainments. All night long he had wrestled in the spirit. And at sunrise he bathed himself, and with one bark garment on and the other in his hand, he stood, letting the water dry off his body. At the moment a daughter of the gods observed his perfect beauty, and fell in love with him. Tempting him, she repeated this first stanza. "Begging monk, do you know what of joy the world can show? Now's the time, there is no other. Pleasure first, then begging, monk." The Bodhisattva listened to the nymph's address, and then replied, stating his set purpose, by repeating the second stanza. The time is unknown, I cannot know. When is the time that I must go? Now is the time. There is no other. So I am now a begging monk. When the nymph heard the bodhisattva's words, she vanished at once. After this discourse the master identified the birth, the nymph is the same in both stories, and the hermit at that time was I myself.